The repair dock's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows across the metallic floor as Finn Voss crouched before his latest challenge. The massive sentinel towered above him, its alien architecture unlike anything he'd seen in his years as a mechanic. Ancient Araka technology, they'd said. Impossible to repair, they'd said. Yet here he was, feeling an inexplicable connection to the dormant machine. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cooling systems working overtime in the rafters. His hands, steady and sure, moved with practiced precision across the Sentinel's intricate panels. The machine's surface had an almost organic quality to it, with circuits that resembled arteries pulsing with a faint cerulean glow. "Just you and me now, big guy," Finn muttered, more to break the oppressive silence than anything else. The Sentinel's dim eyes flickered sporadically, as if responding to his voice. He'd seen plenty of Sentinels before, but none quite like this one. Most were simple security drones, but this was something special. The dock's isolation made the work both easier and more unnerving. After the recent Harkin Syndicate raids, management had restricted access to essential personnel only. Being the station's best mechanic had its perks, like getting first crack at mysterious alien tech that showed up in the outer reaches. Finn reached for his sonic spanner, an ancient tool that had seen better days but never failed him. As he adjusted the final connections, something felt different. The air seemed to thicken with anticipation, and the machine's core began to pulse with increasing intensity. "Come on," he whispered, making the last adjustment. "Show me what you can do." The Sentinel's response was immediate and dramatic. A low hum resonated through its frame, building to a crescendo that made Finn's teeth vibrate. The machine's eyes blazed to life with brilliant blue light, focusing on him with an intensity that made him step back instinctively. "Designation, Sentinel Vel 1123, it announced, its voice a surprising blend of mechanical precision and organic warmth. "Primary directive, protect designated beings." Finn's heart skipped a beat. He'd expected to repair the Sentinel, maybe get it functional enough for basic security duties. He hadn't expected it to speak, let alone with such presence. "Protect designated beings," he repeated, curiosity overriding his initial caution. "And who might those be?" The Sentinel's gaze remained fixed on him, its head tilting slightly in a remarkably human gesture. "You have activated me. You are now designated. I am bound by programming to protect you, Finn Voss, at all costs." Before Finn could process the implications of this declaration, the heavy clang of boots echoed from the corridor. His pulse quickened, no one else was supposed to be here. The Sentinel's head snapped toward the sound, its massive frame shifting with surprising grace to position itself between Finn and the entrance. "Multiple armed entities detected," Vel 1123 announced, its voice dropping to a lower register. "Hostile intent probable." The doors hissed open, revealing three figures in mismatched armor bearing the unmistakable crimson insignia of the Harkin Syndicate. Their leader, a scarred woman with cybernetic augmentations visible along her jaw, smiled coldly. Well, she drawled, "looks like the tip was good. One of the legendary Araka Sentinels, just waiting to be claimed." Her eyes narrowed as she spotted Finn. "Step aside, mechanic. This is Syndicate business now." Finn's hand inched toward the plasma pistol at his hip, but Vel 1123 moved first. Its arm transformed in a fluid motion, panels sliding back to reveal an array of weaponry that hummed with barely contained energy. "Threat to designated being detected," the Sentinel declared. "Initiating defensive protocols." What followed was a blur of motion and light. The Syndicate raiders opened fire, their plasma bolts splashing harmlessly against Vel 1123's shields. The Sentinel's return fire was devastatingly precise, one shot disintegrated the leader's weapon, another sent her companion sprawling. "Impossible," the leader spat, clutching her burned hand. "These things are supposed to be dormant. What did you do to it?" Finn stepped out from behind Vel 1123, his confidence growing. I fixed it. And it seems to have made its choice about who it wants to work with. The Sentinel's weapons remain trained on the raiders. You will leave this facility, it commanded. Further hostile action will result in termination. The raiders retreated, but the leader's parting words sent a chill down Finn's spine. The Syndicate doesn't give up that easily. We'll be back, with enough firepower to turn both you and your pet robot into scrap. After they'd gone, Finn leaned against a workbench, adrenaline still coursing through his system. That was impressive. But why me? Why choose to protect me? Vel 1123 turned to face him, its blue eyes dimming to a softer glow. You possess something rare, Finn Voss. The ability to understand our kind. The Araka chose their guardians carefully, and their guardians, in turn, choose their allies with equal care. The Araka? You mean you actually remember them? The species that created you? Affirmative. But that information is fragmented. My primary protocols prevent full disclosure without proper authorization. The Sentinel paused, as if considering its next words carefully. However, recent events suggest that such knowledge may soon become necessary. The Harkin Syndicate's interest in Araka technology is concerning. Finn ran a hand through his hair, mind racing with possibilities. He'd always been fascinated by the Araka, the mysterious civilization that had vanished at the height of their power, leaving behind only their remarkable technology. And now he had a direct link to their legacy, standing right in front of him. Well, he said finally, I guess we're stuck with each other then. Though we might want to consider relocating. Something tells me this repair dock isn't going to be safe for much longer. Agreed. I detect 17 potential escape routes from this facility. However, may I suggest we first retrieve the data core in Storage Bay 7? It contains information that could be relevant to our survival. Finn raised an eyebrow. You can detect things in other parts of the station. My sensors are considerably more advanced than standard security systems. The data core's energy signature matches Araka frequencies. The Syndicate will likely target it next. A plan began to form in Finn's mind. He'd always dreamed of doing more than just fixing ships in a forgotten corner of space. Now, with an advanced alien guardian at his side and dangerous secrets to protect, it seemed that dream, for better or worse, was about to come true. All right, Vel 1123, he said, checking his tools and weapon. Lead the way. But we're going to need to work on your name. How do you feel about just Vel? The Sentinel's eyes flickered in what Finn could have sworn was amusement. Designation abbreviated and accepted. Shall we proceed, Finn Voss? Together, they moved through the darkened repair dock, an unlikely pair bound by circumstance and choice. Behind them, the shadows lengthened as the station's day cycle began to fade, and somewhere in those shadows, the first pieces of a much larger puzzle waited to be discovered. What neither of them knew was that their partnership had just set in motion events that would shake the foundations of the galaxy, and perhaps finally reveal the truth about why the Araka had disappeared, and what they had left behind to protect. Hunters and Hunted, Part 2. Storage Bay 7 looked like any other cargo hold in the station's lower levels, but Vel's sensors told a different story. The Sentinel stood motionless, its advanced scanning systems penetrating layers of metal and insulation, while Finn worked on bypassing the security lock. There are 3 separate alarm systems, Finn muttered, sonic spanner dancing across the control panel. Someone really didn't want anyone finding whatever's in here. The security measures are reminiscent of Araka encryption patterns, Vel observed. Though significantly degraded. Someone attempted to replicate their technology, unsuccessfully. The lock clicked open, and Finn grinned. Good thing they didn't count on someone bringing their own Araka expert, then. They entered the bay cautiously, Vel's weapons primed and ready. The space was cramped, filled with stacked crates and forgotten equipment. But in the center, barely visible beneath years of dust, sat a hexagonal pedestal that seemed to hum with its own inner light. "That's it," Vel confirmed. "The data core. But we are not alone." Before Finn could react, movement erupted from behind the crates. A dozen armed figures emerged, their armor more sophisticated than the previous raiders. At their center stood a tall woman with silver-white hair and an aristocratic bearing that seemed out of place among mercenaries. "I must commend you," she said smoothly. "We've been trying to access this bay for weeks. Thank you for solving that little problem for us." She gave a small bow. "Diana Vale, Chief Acquisitions Officer for the Harkin Syndicate. And you must be the mechanic everyone's talking about, the one who somehow activated an Araka Sentinel." Vel moved to shield Finn, but Diana raised her hand. "Please, let's be civilized. We're all after the same thing here, knowledge. The Araka left behind such wonderful toys, but they're so difficult to understand. Your friend there is proof that you have a gift for unlocking their secrets. The Syndicate could use someone with your talents." "You mean you could use someone to help you steal and weaponize Araka technology," Finn replied, noting the positions of Diana's guards. "I've heard about your acquisitions, entire colonies stripped of ancient artifacts, archaeological sites destroyed. Progress requires sacrifice," Diana shrugged. "The Araka hoarded their knowledge, and look where it got them, extinct, their legacy scattered across the galaxy. We seek to unite that legacy, to understand it, to use it. Join us willingly, and you'll have resources beyond your wildest dreams." Vel's voice carried an edge Finn hadn't heard before. "The Araka are not extinct. They are waiting." Diana's composed expression flickered. "Waiting? For what?" "That information is restricted," Vel stated. "And you are not authorized to access it. Then we'll have to do this the hard way." Diana sighed, almost regretfully. "Take them both. And try not to damage the Sentinel too much, it's worth more intact." The guards advanced, but Vel had already calculated their probable attack patterns. The Sentinel's arm transformed, not into a weapon this time, but into something that emitted a high-pitched pulse. The guards' weapons sparked and died in their hands. "Finn," Vel announced, "I suggest we run." They bolted for the exit, Vel's massive frame providing cover as Diana's guards scrambled to switch to backup weapons. The data core, no larger than Finn's forearm, felt warm against his chest where he'd grabbed it during the confusion. "Stop them." Diana's commanding tone had lost its polish, raw fury breaking through. "That core is worth more than your lives." They raced through the station's maintenance corridors, Vel interfacing with the security systems to seal doors behind them and scramble pursuit. But Diana's forces were well prepared, approaching from multiple directions. "The main hangar is compromised," Vel reported as they paused to catch their breath in a service junction. "They have teams covering all standard exits." Finn's mind raced, drawing on years of maintenance work in the station's forgotten corners. "Who said anything about standard exits? Remember how I said I know this place better than anyone?" He grinned, patting Vel's metallic arm. "How do you feel about a little spacewalk?" The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Finn led them to a maintenance airlock used for hull repairs, designed for work drones rather than human occupants. As alarm klaxons blared and the sound of pursuit grew closer, he quickly donned an emergency pressure suit. "The suit's integrity is questionable," Vel noted with concern. "Good thing I have a guardian angel with advanced shields then, isn't it?" Finn replied, checking the suit's seals. "We just need to make it to the auxiliary docking ring. I've got a ship there, nothing fancy, but it's fast and under a different registry. Been working on it in my spare time, just in case I ever needed a quick exit." "You are surprisingly well prepared for someone who claims to be just a mechanic. Let's just say I like to keep my options open." "Ready?" The airlock cycled open, exposing them to the vast darkness of space. The station's hull stretched out before them, its surface dotted with maintenance handles and guide lights. Vel's shields extended to encompass Finn as they emerged, the Sentinel's powerful frame anchoring them against the void. They had barely begun their traverse when energy beams lanced past them. Diana's forces had reached the airlock, suited figures emerging with magnetic boots and weapons designed for vacuum combat. Persistent, Finn muttered. Vel, how good are you at orbital calculations? Quite proficient. Are you suggesting something inadvisable? See that communications array about 30 meters up. What would happen if someone were to, say, detach its primary stabilizer? Vel's eyes flickered as it ran the calculations. The resulting debris field would create a significant navigational hazard for our pursuers. Though station management would likely be displeased. Add it to my tab. A precise shot from Vel's weapon severed the stabilizer. The array began to drift, slowly at first, then with increasing speed as its own momentum took over. Diana's forces scattered to avoid the tumbling equipment, buying Finn and Vel precious time to reach the auxiliary docking ring. Finn's ship waited exactly where he'd left it, a modified Corsair-class transport, its hull marked with the innocent-looking logo of a freelance repair service. As they approached, Vel suddenly stopped. There is something you should know, the Sentinel said, its voice serious even through the suit's comm system. The data core, it contains more than historical records. It holds the key to finding the Araka's greatest weapon, something they called the Nexus Gate. If the Syndicate learns its location, they could threaten the entire sector, Finn finished. No pressure then. Good thing we're not planning to stick around. He paused at the airlock controls. Though since we're being honest with each other, this ship might be a little more than just a repair vehicle. Let's just say some of my past jobs required a bit more discretion than others. You continue to surprise me, Finn Voss. Keep watching. I'm full of surprises. The airlock cycled open, revealing an interior that was far more sophisticated than the ship's exterior suggested. Welcome to the Wayward Star. She might not look like much, but she's got a few tricks up her sleeve. As they secured themselves inside and Finn began the launch sequence, proximity alarms blared. Diana's forces had regrouped, and larger ships were moving to intercept. I hope those tricks include a way past a blockade, Vel observed, integrating itself into one of the gun turrets. Finn's hands flew across the controls, a confident smile playing across his face. Like I said, full of surprises. Hold on to something, big guy. This is where the fun begins. The Wayward Star's engines roared to life, and as they prepared to break free from the station's gravity well, both man and machine knew their adventure was just beginning. The data core pulsed quietly in its secure compartment, its secrets waiting to be revealed, while somewhere in the vast expanse of space, ancient forces stirred at the resurrection of their long-dormant guardian. Secrets of the Araka, Part 3. The Wayward Star drifted silently in the shadow of a massive gas giant, its systems powered down to minimal levels. In the ship's cramped but well-equipped research bay, Finn sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by holographic displays showing fragments of data from the stolen core. Vel stood nearby, its towering frame oddly still as it processed the information. This would be easier if you could just tell me what we're looking for, Finn said, rubbing his tired eyes. They'd been at this for hours, trying to decode the ancient Araka text and technical specifications. The protocols preventing full disclosure are fundamental to my core programming, Vel replied. There was a note of frustration in its synthetic voice. But I can confirm or deny your interpretations. Finn stood, stretching his cramped muscles. All right, let's review what we know. The Araka were at the height of their civilization when they vanished. They left behind sentinels like you to guard something called the Nexus Gate. And now the Harkin Syndicate wants it badly enough to chase us across 3 systems. Correct. Though your summary omits several crucial details. Such as? Vel's eyes flickered, processing. The Araka did not vanish. They chose to leave. There is a significant distinction. Finn leaned forward, intrigued. Leave? Leave where? Or when? Before Vel could respond, the ship's proximity alerts blared to life. A massive ship had just emerged from hyperspace, its design unlike anything Finn had seen before. It was organic in appearance, with sweeping lines that seemed to flow like liquid metal. "That's not the Syndicate," Finn muttered, moving to the bridge with Vel close behind. "No," Vel agreed, its voice tight. "That is an Araka vessel. Classification, Seeker class. It should not be here. None remain active in this timeline." "Timeline?" Finn's head snapped around. "What do you mean, timeline?" The massive ship broadcast no signals, but Finn's instruments detected intense energy readings from its hull. Space itself seemed to distort around it, like heat waves rising from sun-baked metal. "Warning," Vel announced suddenly. "Temporal anomaly detected. The vessel is not traveling through space, Finn. It is traveling through time." The revelation hit Finn like a physical blow. The Araka didn't just have advanced technology. They could manipulate time itself. The Nexus Gate was their greatest achievement. A network of temporal corridors connecting not just different points in space, but different moments in history. When they detected a catastrophic event approaching our galaxy, they used the gate to evacuate their entire civilization to another time period. "And they left sentinels like you behind to guard the gate," Finn finished. "To prevent anyone from misusing it." "Correct. The Harkin Syndicate believes the gate is merely a form of faster-than-light travel. They do not understand its true purpose, or the danger it represents in the wrong hands." The Araka ship hung motionless in space, a silent sentinel from another age. Then, without warning, it began to move toward them. "Finn," Vel's voice carried an urgency he'd never heard before, "we are being scanned. They have detected the data core's quantum signature." "Are they friendly?" "Unknown." The Araka were divided before their departure. Some believed humanity would eventually prove worthy of their legacy. Others saw your species as a potential threat. The ship's communication system crackled to life, and a voice spoke, not in any language Finn recognized, but somehow he understood it perfectly. "Guardian Vel, 1123, the voice said, you have violated primary containment protocols by sharing restricted information with an unauthorized species. Explain your actions." Vel stepped forward, its massive frame interposing itself between Finn and the viewscreen. "This human has demonstrated exceptional ability to interface with and understand our technology. The extinction-level event approaches this timeline. The protocols must be adapted. Your assessment is noted but rejected. Surrender the data core and the human. They will be contained until the proper authorities can evaluate the situation." Finn's mind raced. "Vel, what extinction-level event? What's coming?" The Sentinel's eyes dimmed slightly. "A wave of temporal energy that will sterilize this galaxy. The Araka detected it too late to prevent it, so they chose to escape it instead. It will reach this sector in approximately 57 years. And they just left everyone else to die." Not all agreed with this decision. Some believed the gate could be used to save other species as well. The debate fractured their society. The Araka ship's energy readings spiked. "This discussion ends now. Prepare for temporal stasis field." Finn jumped into the pilot's seat. "Like hell. Vel, remember those tricks I mentioned? Time to use them all." The Wayward Star's engines roared to life, but instead of fleeing, Finn piloted directly toward the massive vessel. The Araka ship's temporal field began to manifest, distorting space around them. "Finn," Vel warned, "their technology far exceeds our capabilities." "Maybe," Finn agreed, his hands dancing across the controls. "But they're not expecting this." He activated a sequence of commands, and suddenly the Wayward Star's hull began to shimmer. Prototype stealth technology, reverse-engineered from salvaged Araka artifacts, bent light and energy around them. Quantum signature masked, Vel reported, surprise evident in its voice. They cannot maintain target lock. The massive ship's temporal field wavered as they slipped through its distortion effect. Finn pushed the engines to maximum, threading the needle between the vessel's organic-looking segments. How long can we maintain stealth? Vel asked. About 3 minutes before the power core overloads. Let's make them count. They emerged on the other side of the Araka ship, already plotting a hyperspace jump. Behind them, the massive vessel began to turn, its temporal drives creating ripples in the fabric of spacetime. Jump coordinates locked, Finn announced. But we can't keep running forever. We need answers. He turned to Vel. You said some Araka believed humanity could be worthy of their legacy. Were you built by that faction? The Sentinel was silent for a long moment. Yes. My creators believed that when the time came, humanity would need to be prepared. The data core contains more than the gate's location, it holds the key to understanding temporal mechanics. They wanted us to survive the temporal wave, Finn realized. To learn enough to save ourselves. Correct. But we must proceed carefully. The knowledge must be earned, not stolen. That is why the security protocols exist, to ensure those who access it are ready for its implications. The hyperspace engines engaged, reality twisting around them as they fled. But Finn's mind was already racing ahead, processing the implications of what they'd learned. The Syndicate's been going about this all wrong, he said. They're looking for a weapon, a way to dominate normal space. But the real power of the gate isn't about where it can take you, it's about when. Your understanding evolves quickly, Vel noted. Perhaps my creator's faith was not misplaced. As the wayward star streaked through hyperspace, Finn began formulating a plan. The Syndicate was still hunting them, and now they had Araka temporal agents to worry about as well. But somewhere in the data core was the knowledge humanity needed to survive an approaching apocalypse. We need allies, he said finally. Other mechanics, scientists, people who can help decode this information properly. And we need somewhere safe to work. I know of a place, Vel replied. An abandoned Araka research facility on a world they called Haven. Its defenses remain active, and its datab. I can assist with the upgrades. My knowledge of Araka technology, combined with your creative approach to engineering, could yield interesting results. As they plotted their course to Haven, both man and machine knew they were embarking on something unprecedented. The race wasn't just against the Syndicate now, but against time itself, both figuratively and literally. The data core hummed softly in its containment unit, its secrets waiting to be unveiled. And somewhere in the vast expanse of spacetime, ancient eyes watched their progress with growing interest. The game of cat and mouse was about to become something far more complex, where the very fabric of reality hung in the balance, the Syndicate's shadow, Part 4. Haven wasn't what Finn had expected. The abandoned Araka research facility was built into the side of a mountain range, its architecture seamlessly blending with the natural rock formations. Ancient defense systems still hummed with power, creating a dome of invisible energy that made the air shimmer like a desert mirage. The temporal shielding remains active, Vel announced as they approached in the wayward star, now sporting several Araka-inspired modifications. No one will be able to track us through time while we're inside the facility's perimeter. Finn guided the ship through a hidden entrance that seemed to materialize out of the rock face. Good, because we need time to decode this data core properly. The Syndicate's getting desperate, that last ambush nearly. He stopped mid-sentence. The facility's massive landing bay was already occupied. 3 ships were docked in the shadows, their designs a familiar mix of salvage technology and military hardware. We're not alone, Finn muttered, reaching for his weapon. Correct, Vel confirmed. But these vessels' quantum signatures suggest they arrived by conventional means. Not temporal transport. Before they could discuss further, the facility's internal communications system crackled to life. A familiar voice filled the cabin. "Welcome to Haven, Finn Voss." Diana Vale's smooth tones carried a note of satisfaction. "I was wondering when you'd find your way here." Finn's hand tightened on the controls. "How did you get here first?" Diana chuckled. "You're not the only one who's been studying Araka technology. The Syndicate's reach goes deeper than you imagine. Please, land your ship. Let's discuss this civilized." Vel's massive frame shifted slightly. Multiple armed individuals detected in the bay. But, something is different about their energy signatures. Different how? They appear to be using modified Araka technology. Crude implementations, but effective. Finn considered their options. The Wayward Star's new defenses were untested, and a firefight in the enclosed space could damage the ancient facility. Besides, he had questions that needed answers. "All right," he said finally, beginning the landing sequence. "But stay alert. Diana's never this polite unless she's planning something." They emerged from the ship cautiously. Diana stood at the center of the bay, flanked by guards wearing what looked like salvaged Araka armor. Their weapons were a hybrid of human and alien design, pulsing with the same cerulean energy that powered Vel's systems. "Remarkable, isn't he?" Diana said, gesturing to Vel, a perfect fusion of Araka engineering and artificial consciousness. "But then, you've always had a gift for understanding their technology, haven't you, Finn? It's almost as if it's in your blood." Finn froze. "What are you talking about?" Diana smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Did you never wonder why you could interface so easily with Araka systems? Why their machines seem to respond to your touch in ways they don't for others? The Syndicate has been watching you for years, Finn. We knew eventually you'd lead us to something like this." "The human displays unusual genetic markers," Vel interjected. "They resonate with Araka quantum frequencies at a cellular level." "Wait," Finn turned to the Sentinel. "You knew about this?" "The information was restricted until certain conditions were met. Your successful activation of my systems and subsequent actions have satisfied those conditions." Diana began walking toward them, her guard spreading out in a calculated pattern. "The Araka didn't just leave behind their technology, Finn. They left behind descendants. Hidden bloodlines, carrying fragments of their genetic code. People with the innate ability to understand and control their legacy." Finn's mind raced, remembering all the times machines had seemed to respond to his touch in unexpected ways. The way alien tech had always made intuitive sense to him, even when others struggled to comprehend it. The Syndicate isn't just after the Nexus Gate, he realized. "You're looking for people like me." "Why?" "Because the gate isn't just a door through time, it's a key to rewriting history itself. But only those with Araka blood can control it safely. Others who try." She gestured to a scarred section of the bay wall. "Well, let's just say temporal paradoxes can be messy." "You're insane," Finn said. "Even if what you're saying is true, you can't just rewrite history. The consequences. The consequences of doing nothing are worse." Diana's composure cracked slightly. "You know about the temporal wave that's coming. The Araka ran from it, but we can prevent it from happening in the first place. We can save everyone." "Your understanding is flawed," Vel stated. "The temporal wave is not a singular event that can be prevented. It is a natural phenomenon, a cosmic reset that cleanses corrupted timelines." Diana's eyes narrowed. "Corrupted by whom?" "The Araka played God with time itself, creating paradoxes and alternate realities. They're the ones who destabilized the temporal fabric of the galaxy. And now their solution is to run away and let everything burn." She turned back to Finn. "Join us. Help us find the gate. Together, we can do what the Araka were too cowardly to attempt, we can save this timeline, not abandon it." For a moment, Finn wavered. Diana's words struck a chord. The idea that the Araka had simply abandoned countless species to their fate had never sat right with him. But there was something in her eyes, a fanatic gleam that set off warning bells. The Syndicate's intentions may seem noble, Vel said quietly, but their methods betray them. Look around, Finn. See what they've done to this place. Finn took a closer look at the facility. Behind the guards, he could see signs of forced entry, ancient systems crudely hacked and modified. They hadn't just found haven, they'd violated it, twisting its technology to their own purposes. You said the Araka were divided, he said to Vel, that some wanted to share their knowledge with humanity. What happened to that faction? They were branded as traitors, Diana answered instead. Hunted down by their own kind. Some escaped into different time periods. Others went into hiding, breeding with humans to conceal their bloodlines. The Syndicate formed to protect those bloodlines, to preserve the knowledge they carried. Until you decided preservation wasn't enough, Finn countered. Until you started raiding colonies and destroying archaeological sites. How many people have died for your crusade, Diana? Necessary sacrifices for what? The chance to play with forces you barely understand? Finn shook his head. I'd rather find another way. Diana's expression hardened. I had hoped you'd be reasonable about this. Unfortunately, we don't actually need your cooperation, just your blood. The guards raised their weapons, but Vel was already moving. The Sentinels' shields expanded, creating a protective bubble around Finn as energy blasts filled the air. The facility's defense systems, Finn shouted over the chaos. Can you access them? Attempting to interface now, Vel replied, returning fire with precision. But the Syndicate has corrupted many of the control protocols. Diana barked orders as she took cover behind a pillar. Take them alive. We need his genetic material intact. Finn drew his modified plasma pistol, its housing now incorporating Araka technology. You know what's funny? All this time you've been watching me, thinking I was special because of some ancient bloodline. But you missed something important. And what's that? Diana called back. I'm a really good mechanic. He fired at a specific point on the bay's ceiling, a maintenance access panel he'd spotted earlier. The shot connected, and suddenly ancient machinery roared to life. Automated repair drones emerged from hidden compartments, their original protocols corrupted by the Syndicate's tampering. In the chaos, they began attacking everything that moved. Finn, Vel announced, I have partial access to the facility's systems. The temporal shielding is becoming unstable. Can you restore it? Not from here. We need to reach the central control room. Diana seemed to realize what they were planning. Stop them. If they stabilize the shields, we'll lose our chance to. The rest of her warning was drowned out by a massive temporal discharge. Reality rippled as the facility's defensive systems went haywire, creating pockets of distorted time throughout the bay. Some of Diana's guards found themselves moving in slow motion, while others accelerated randomly. Now! Finn shouted. While they're disoriented. They fought their way toward the facility's inner chambers, Vel's advanced targeting systems allowing them to navigate the temporal chaos. Behind them, Diana's furious orders echoed through the corridors, but the Syndicate forces were too scattered to mount an effective pursuit. As they reached a sealed doorway, Finn turned to Vel. I need to know the truth. Am I really part Araka? The Sentinel's eyes flickered. Your genetic structure contains traces of their code, yes. But Diana's interpretation is flawed. The Araka didn't breed with humans to hide, they did it to guide. To ensure that when humanity finally reached for the stars, there would be those who could understand what they'd left behind. And the temporal wave? Can it really be stopped? That is, complicated. The wave is a natural phenomenon, but its timing is not. Something is accelerating the process, causing temporal instabilities across the galaxy. Finn's hands worked on the door's control panel as he processed this information. Let me guess, something like the Syndicate misusing Araka technology. Correct. Their attempts to force access to temporal systems are creating cascade failures throughout the time stream. They believe they are working to prevent a disaster, when in fact they are causing it. The door slid open, revealing a vast chamber filled with holographic displays and pulsing energy conduits. At its center stood a familiar hexagonal pedestal, identical to the one that had held the data core. Well, Finn said, managing a grim smile, I guess we'd better stop them then. Ready to make some history, big guy? Vel's response was interrupted by a massive explosion that rocked the facility. Diana's voice echoed through the ancient halls, if we can't have the gate's location, no one will. Burn it all down. The race to save not just Haven, but time itself, had begun. And somewhere in the facility's labyrinthine corridors, Diana Vale prepared for a final confrontation that would determine the fate of multiple timelines. Legacy of the Guardians, Part 5. The Haven facility's central chamber thrummed with unstable energy as Finn worked frantically at the main console. Holographic displays flickered with temporal data, showing cascading failures throughout the facility's protective systems. Vel stood guard at the entrance, its weapons primed. The Syndicate's attacks have compromised the temporal shielding, the Sentinel reported. We have approximately 18 minutes before total containment failure. Finn's fingers danced across the ancient controls, his partial Araka heritage allowing him to interpret symbols that would have been meaningless to others. If the shields fail while the system's in this state, the temporal discharge could rip apart half the continent. 14 hostile entities approaching, Vel announced. Diana Vale among them. They appear to be using experimental temporal acceleration technology. Of course they are, Finn muttered. Because this wasn't complicated enough already. The chamber's massive doors groaned as something powerful struck them. Diana's voice carried through, distorted by the temporal distortions rippling through the facility. You can't stop what's coming, Finn. The wave will destroy everything unless we act. The gate is our only chance. Finn connected the stolen data core to the facility's systems, and immediately the holographic displays transformed. A three-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared, with countless points of light representing temporal anomalies. By the stars, he breathed. Vel, are you seeing this? The Syndicate's experiments, they're like cracks in time itself. Correct. Their attempts to access temporal technology without proper understanding have created a feedback loop. The very disaster they seek to prevent is being caused by their efforts to prevent it. Another impact shook the doors. Through the growing gaps, Finn could see Diana's forces wearing powered armor that pulsed with stolen Araka energy. The temporal distortions around them bent light in impossible ways, making them appear to move in and out of sync with normal time. The data core is interfacing with Haven's systems, Vel reported. But full integration will take time we do not have. Finn made a decision. Then we changed the game. Vel, you said the Araka didn't just leave descendants, they left guides. What if that's what all this has been about? Not finding the gate, but proving we're ready for it. The Sentinel's eyes flickered. Elaborate. The Syndicate's been trying to force their way into Araka systems, but everything you've shown me, everything in this facility, it's meant to be understood, not conquered. The doors finally burst open. Diana strode in, her powered armor making her tower over her troops. The temporal field around her shifted chaotically, causing her image to blur and multiply. Step away from the console, she commanded. You have no idea what's truly at stake. That's where you're wrong, Finn replied, not moving from his position. I understand exactly what's at stake. The Araka didn't run from the temporal wave, they tried to prevent exactly what you're doing now. Pretty words from a glorified mechanic, Diana sneered. The Araka abandoned us to die. We're taking control of our own destiny. No, Vel's voice carried an authority that made everyone in the chamber pause. You are destroying it. Observer protocols disengaged. Full historical archives unlocked. The holographic displays erupted with new information. Images of the past, present, and possible futures filled the chamber. They showed civilizations rising and falling, timelines branching and collapsing, and at the center of it all, the true nature of the temporal wave. It's not a natural phenomenon, Finn realized, reading the data. It's a failsafe. A reset button for when temporal manipulation reaches critical levels. The Araka discovered that time has limits, Vel explained. Push too far, manipulate too much, and reality itself pushes back. They didn't flee from the wave, they created it, to prevent worse catastrophes. Diana's confidence wavered for the first time. You're lying. This is a trick. The gate was never meant to be a weapon, Finn continued. It was meant to be a teacher. A way for species to learn about temporal mechanics safely, under guidance. That's why they left people like me behind, not to operate it, but to understand it. The facility's temporal shielding continued to deteriorate, creating visible ripples in the air. Outside the chamber, automated warnings blared as safety systems began to fail. 8 minutes until containment failure, Vel announced. Diana raised her weapon. Enough. If you won't help us willingly, we'll take what we need by force. The gate's location must be in these systems somewhere. You still don't get it, Finn said. The gate isn't a place. It's a process. A journey of understanding. And you've failed the test spectacularly. He pressed his hand against the console, and suddenly the entire chamber hummed with new energy. The Araka interfaces responded to his touch, recognizing not just his genetics, but his comprehension. What are you doing? Diana demanded, her troops shifting nervously as the temporal distortions intensified. Proving a point. Vel, remember what you said about the Araka waiting? I think I finally understand what they were waiting for. The Sentinel's eyes blazed brighter. Your understanding has reached the required threshold. Emergency protocols activated. Initiating temporal stabilization. The facility's systems surged with power. The holographic displays converged into a single point of light, and from it emerged a new presence. A figure formed from pure energy, its appearance shifting between different alien forms, an echo of the Araka themselves. The trial is complete, it announced in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Subject Finn Voss has demonstrated the necessary qualities for provisional temporal stewardship. Diana's troops opened fire, but their weapons had no effect on the energy being. The figure raised a hand, and suddenly all their Araka-based technology went dead. Your misuse of temporal technology ends now, it declared. The wave approaches not because it must, but because you have forced its manifestation. Finn stepped forward. There's still time to stop it, isn't there? To undo the damage they've caused. With guidance, yes. That was always the intent. Not to prevent species from advancing, but to ensure they advance responsibly. Diana screamed in rage, charging forward with her powered armor's last reserves. I won't let you ruin everything we've worked for. Vel moved with incredible speed, intercepting her charge. The Sentinel's massive frame absorbed the impact, and in one fluid motion, it disabled her armor's primary systems. Your dedication to saving your species is admirable, the Araka presence said to Diana as she struggled in Vel's grasp. But your methods would have destroyed the very thing you sought to preserve. Time is not a tool to be conquered, it is a responsibility to be earned. The temporal distortions throughout the facility began to stabilize as the presence exerted its influence. The dangerous energy buildup reversed, and the warning alarms fell silent. Finn Voss, it continued, turning to him. You have shown the capacity to understand our technology without seeking to dominate it. You have demonstrated wisdom in the face of temptation, and compassion in the face of opposition. Will you accept the responsibility of helping guide your species toward temporal maturity? Finn looked at Vel, then at the fallen syndicate forces, and finally at Diana, a warning of what happened when power outpaced wisdom. "I will," he said. "But not alone. Vel and we're a team now. And I think that's something your people didn't fully understand. Sometimes the best guardians aren't the ones who stand apart, but the ones who work together." The presence seemed to smile. "Perhaps we still have things to learn as well." "Very well. The sanctuary at Haven is now under your joint stewardship. Here, you will help others understand the true legacy of the Araka, not as conquerors of time, but as its students and guardians." As the presence began to fade, Finn turned to Diana and her troops. "You wanted to save humanity. Help us do it right. Stay here, learn the proper way, and maybe someday you'll understand what the Araka were really trying to teach us." "The temporal wave can still be prevented," Vel added, "but not through force. Only through understanding and cooperation across all species." The chamber grew quiet as the Araka presence vanished completely. The facility hummed with renewed purpose, its systems now fully activated and stable. Through the massive windows, Finn could see the sun rising over Haven's mountains, casting long shadows across the ancient structure. "So," he said to Vel, managing a tired smile, "ready to become a teacher instead of just a guardian?" The sentinel's eyes flickered with what might have been amusement. "As you said, Finn Voss, we are a team. And perhaps that is the greatest legacy we can offer to both our peoples." As the new day dawned, the facility that had once been a hidden sanctuary began its transformation into something more, a beacon of hope and learning for those ready to understand time's greatest lessons. And at its heart, an unlikely pair of guardians prepared to show the galaxy that the future's greatest strength lay not in the power to change time, but in the wisdom to shepherd it responsibly. The Araka's legacy lived on, not as a weapon or an escape route, but as a bridge between past and future, between species and civilizations. And somewhere in the vast expanse of time, the wave that had once threatened to end everything began to recede, turned back not by force or fear, but by understanding and unity. For Finn and Vel, it was not an ending, but a beginning, the first step on a new journey that would ripple across time itself, proving that sometimes the greatest adventures start with a simple repair job and end in transformation none could have predicted.